Hey everybody, this is Kyle from Auditing with Autism. Thanks for being here. I'm making this video to be the Genesis video of who and where I come from, who I am, and things like that. I came to understand that possibly you might be interested in things like that. So I thought I'd go ahead and make this video for that. My stimming. Nice little stimming trick because you can just say you're playing music. Uh, so the genesis of me is uh, uh, I was born exactly at the 45th parallel, exactly halfway between the equator and the North Pole. And before the diagnosis, I had a lot of jokes about my personality and being in the middle of that, uh, hemisphere, as it were. I'm saying that wrong, but being born in Salem, Oregon is exactly at the 45th parallel. So you're halfway between the equator and the North Pole, which would make a person think that you would have a very easy personality, steady. But of course, it doesn't make any difference where you're born for your personality. Not really, for the most part, as far as I'm concerned. Um, Another smelling, stimming technique. It's a cologne cap. Ooh, cologne. I like this cologne. It smells good. And so I pull the cap off and makes me a happy man. And then a little sound, and I'm a happier man. That's the raw stuff right there. That's exactly it. I'm thinking about a million things, of course, but I'm just imagining, if I did that in front of somebody who doesn't know, smelled the cap, and made the music, and they don't understand my personality, they might judge me, right? And I would think I would judge a person in a really great way. I remember when I saw one of my favorite autism channels, and she smelled, I think, um, you know, a, something in on her channel during the show, and it connected with me, autism and smelling. So off track. I hope that's okay. But I was born in Salem, Oregon. Back to the story. And then we quickly moved to it was quite a journey, actually. If I was to give you the short story, which I will right now, and then the long story, you could see there's quite a big difference. But the short story is born in Salem, Oregon, moved to a place called, with a beautiful name, called White Salmon, Washington, Washington State. And then that's where the pear orchard was, at the base of Mount Adams, which is one of the volcanic mountains here in the Pacific Northwest. It's right next door to Mount St. Helens that erupted on May 18th, 1980. I was there for that. I'll never forget. My stepmom and my stepsister, we were, the kids, us kids were maybe 10, and stepmom, we all three of us went that morning to go fishing. And then we were in shorts, it was warm, it was May, and then suddenly it started snowing. And it wasn't snow, of course, it was ash. And I kind of had a perception that there was something going on with that mountain from the news at even that age. But my stepmom, I'll never forget her reaction. I think we left the poles even, and we just ran to the truck and drove home and got our stuff together and stuff like that. And of course, we didn't get hurt. It was just a bunch of ash. About 4 inches of ash fell on us, and we were lucky. A lot of places had more than that. So anyway, about about Washington and white salmon, I have to say that community is magic and special to me. It's a small town, at that time less than 3,000 people. And even though I have autism and had it then, everybody in the community was so nice. it made, I didn't have any diagnosis, and because everybody accepted me, I was on the inside. I mean, everybody was on the inside. There was so few people in school that we all were on the inside with each other. There was no inside outside really, because it was too small. And that was perfect, I think, for me and with my autism, and maybe with other people with their autism, to not have those judgments going around when you're a kid trying to learn stuff. But anyway, well, I bring it up because it's important. What if, oh, by the way, YouTube picks up everything. These digital cameras, I mean, I live in the country. I have, a fireplace. I cut wood, and so don't make a video with your hands dirty or with any blemishes, because it'll show up, and now I'm embarrassed about that. But so I cut wood this morning, and I made another video this morning that had hands that were, anyway. I don't know why I even bring that up, but I think I know why I bring it up. It's because I don't want people to think I'm a dirty boy. And, I try really hard not to be, living all my life in the country like I have. But it's, you're going to get dirty hands once in a while. I enjoy touching the dirt and getting dirty hands. But I also appreciate a clean video and, stuff like that. Anyway, so what I'm trying to say is that white salmon was great. It was magic. And unfortunately, we left, though, when I was about to start high school. And we moved to Salem, Oregon, back where the place I was born. And, there was a cherry orchard there for my father to manage. And it was, difficult to move into a new community. It never really worked for me. To be honest, the autism wasn't accepted in my new reality. But by then, I was already on my own. Side note, the first year that I lived on the new cherry orchard in Salem, Oregon, it's a big orchard. We had 200 acres, and there was a bunch of great people would come and help pick the cherries. One of the great people groups was a family named the Flores family. Come here, baby. You know my dog Dexter. He's a lonely guy. He wants to be here. The Flores family accepted me. They have a bunch of kids, mom and dad, that were just stellar, perfect, loving parents, and their kids, Ruben and Jose and Peter and all the rest of them. But anyway, so we made friends during a harvest, and they invited me to travel with them back to Mexico. And, I asked my dad, and he said, I didn't think he was going to say yes, to be honest, but he said yes. I had just read at the age of 14 a book by Carl Franz called The People's Guide to Mexico. It's one of my favorite books. It's just full of stories of traveling around in Mexico in like the 60s and 70s and all the places they went. And it's basically a YouTube channel put on book in transcript form. It's really interesting, full of love, and the stories are, and it made me want to go there. It made me want to travel. I'm 14 years old. I'm living in White Salmon. I feel like I am, not living in the world enough and stuff like that. And this book opened that up for me. So a few years later, when I'm 15, a year and a half later or so, I made friends with this family. They invited me, and it was accepted. I got to go. And so after harvest, around middle of August, we traveled. First, we went to California. I'm getting way too specific. Oh my God. But I'm going to finish. We went to California. We worked in, we picked grapes down in California. I got to pick almonds. I got to pick green peppers, which is a back-breaking job if you ever do that one. But it was really fun to hang out and to work in California, in Modesto, and Merced and all those areas. And then we drove down into Mexico, a little town called El Castillo, Jalisco, right next door to the big city, Guadalajara. And I lived there for 4 months, went to school, made friends, and it was great. I mean, if you ever get a chance to do something like that, please do it, because it's great and you'll never forget it. And you'll never lose your friends that you do that with. Every time I go down to Mexico, I make sure to visit those guys. They're so good. They accept me in all my glory. So, I had that experience before we moved to Salem. And so I was off and running. I was on my own, a man of the world. And, I felt like I was an adult almost, really, to be honest. And I was maybe 15 or 16. Started having relationships with women and things like that. And imagining myself already being an adult and moving into the world. By the time I was 17, I was extremely involved. Being Salem, Oregon, I was extremely involved in the politics of the day, politics of the town. I don't know why I'm still nervous. Oh my gosh. Do you guys sweat when you get nervous? Because I sure do. Okay. When I was a senior at North Salem High, maybe I shouldn't say that. There's a lot of North Highs, right? When I was a senior in high school, I volunteered at the state capitol for a representative named Margaret Carter. She was a woman out of Portland, Oregon. And she took me under her wing for a little while, and I got to understand how politics works from the inside. She would have me calling ambassadors around the world. She would have me writing letters. She would have me filing bills. And sometimes I would have the privilege of attending her while she was voting on the floor. That was kind of a special privilege as a legislative aide, volunteer, which is what I was. The amazing thing about that experience was that I discovered that there's something called quid pro quo, a little Latin for us this morning. Quid pro quo is really happening. It's not supposed to happen, but it really does. And so the first time I asked Margaret, what reason do you have for voting for this bill that you said you didn't like? Why are you voting for this bill? I asked her straight out. And she said, well, I don't like this bill, but because I'm voting for it, the senator who wrote the bill is going to help me with some bills that I'm, trying to pass. And so right there it was, scratching backs to get what you need to get done. This was a little life lesson that this is how the world works. People help each other out for favors, not for truth and justice so much. Hopefully that's why the favors, but quid pro quo happens because you helped me out, and so therefore I'm obligated to help you out. And that obligation can be troubling. In this case with Margaret Carter, it went against her beliefs. She voted for something she didn't believe in. When I witnessed that, I got out of politics. I couldn't do that with autism. Of course, I didn't know I had autism, but I didn't, at that time I didn't know, but I couldn't do that. There's no way I could be that kind of a person where I would lie to myself to get something done. Of course, I'm much older now and I see a bigger picture. I can understand now how you would, to get a bigger picture, to get something that's bigger than the one bill done. If you have a big agenda, I guess what I'm trying to say is that's the way the world works. you know, it's called diplomacy. If you want to get things done, be accepted, make friends, you're not going to be able to just believe everything you want all the time and have it that way. You're going to have to accept other people's beliefs and ideas. And so it took me decades to come to realize that's what Margaret Carter was doing. God bless her heart, man. She had the best singing voice I've ever heard. But anyway, I understand now why she did that, because she was trying to get something that she cared about through legislation, that she cared about. She was trying to do the right thing. She couldn't say it that way to me at the time, and I wasn't smart enough to pick up on it at that time either. So I missed out. But I made some great friends, and I had the best experience maybe ever as far as politics goes. And then, I became a young adult, and I got into the world. I went back to Mexico where my friends lived. They grew coffee. And so what I did was I ended up buying some coffee from them after dealing with the Coffee Mafia. Before NAFTA, there was something called the Coffee Mafia in Tepic, especially. They found out we were there and they came and met with us, and it was heavy. It was a legit meeting, but it was kind of heavy. Like, they didn't want us to basically buy and steal. They thought the coffee, by buying coffee from our friends, that was coffee they weren't going to get, and they expected it. And so it was this big convoluted thing with the Coffee Mafia. Anyway, we paid them money, like $500, for them to just leave us alone while we bought coffee from our friends. So much stuff like that happening, going on in the world and in Mexico. But it was okay after we paid them money, and then we got the coffee, and then we shipped it up, my partner and I. And we shipped it up, and we also bought some coffee roasters, and we roasted the coffee, and then we sold the coffee. Then we started selling coffee roasters, and then I started shipping up coffee espresso machines, and then I started selling the espresso machines. And then finally we opened up a coffee shop. It was called the Daily Planet, 17th and Center in Salem, Oregon, because I love Superman. Thinking of you, Orion. I love DC Comics. I've got, hey, I've got one right here because I keep them always. This is my main stash. My main storyline was the DC New Teen Titans. Fantastic. George Perez and Wolfman, the writers and the illustrators. Anyway, coffee shop, sold the coffee shop, and I met the beautiful woman. Her name is Christina. We have a kid together. I moved to Washington State with them, bought some land, sold half the land to pay off the other half. And then, things started to change in the dynamic of the family life. And as my partner and I started to separate, I had an opportunity to go to a seminary college. I didn't think I was ever going to go to college after high school, even though I kept reading and learning. It just landed in my lap. And that's a whole nother video of how that happened. But it has to do with, well, to be honest, it has to do with what happened to the Catholic Church about 25 years ago. Some of our parents were involved in that, in the receiving end, which sounds terrible, but is the right way to phrase it. And, our parents grew up and finally contacted attorneys, and the church as penalty, as a way to apologize. Whew, I got a fireplace popping and snapping. It's like, is that a sign from God? I'm not supposed to say this, but it's the truth. Can I say the truth to the world? Anyway, the Catholic Church gifted me a college education because of things that they did that were bad. And that was good for me. I mean, and thank you, Dad, for giving it to me. You know, but and so what I'm trying to say though is that it was that education that was like level two, and leveled up. After that, I understood the humanities. I think everybody should understand the humanities. How can we know where we're coming from and where we're going if we don't have history and literature and philosophy? It should be basic. It actually should be given to kids before they're adults. And then, when you're an adult, you should have that as a way of being critical thinkers. But anyway, what I needed most in life was an education at the time I received it. And thank God I got it. And I don't want to say it was bad because it wasn't, but I had some weird experiences due to autism, possibly, at the seminary. Nothing really bad, nothing bad. I graduated with honors, no problem, no problems there. But some people didn't like why I was there. Some people found out how come I was there, and they didn't like it. They didn't, they didn't. They just didn't like that I would be there for any other reason besides the reason that they were there for, is how I think of it. They were there to become priests. I wasn't there to become a priest. I didn't even ask to be there. But when I got there, it was the best thing. It was like living in bliss every day. I don't know how to describe it. Um, it turned on my brain, and suddenly neuron growth was happening in ways that just made me laugh out loud every day. And that continued even after I graduated, which happened in December of 2006. I started in January 2003. And after I graduated, I continued to have a subscription to the library up there, and so at the seminary. And so I just kept taking out these books, and I kept learning about physics and quantum physics, and this brought me back into theology, which is where I'm at now. I just read a great book called The Tibetan Book of the Dead that has, I think, all the answers. If anybody is looking for answers about why we're here and where we're going, that's the book. Take it from a guy with a philosophy degree. If you're seeking and you don't believe in all the general basic religions that are available, like Christianity, Judaism, Islam, and some of the others, Hinduism, Taoism. If none of these are good for you, if they feel too organized and religiosity-ish, then check out the Tibetan Book of the Dead, because it explains how we can have a spiritual journey without the spiritual management of religion. Personally, I like the spiritual management of religion. I loved school for that same reason. It managed my time, it organized my day and my thoughts, and religion does that as well for me. I I live, ever since I graduated, I've called myself an oblate, Oblate, a religious person who's not affiliated with any organized religious group per se. But I specifically enjoy the Benedictine monk way of doing things. Anyway, so what I did was I ended up graduating from the seminary. I sold some land in Washington. That's where I left off. I'm sorry. I bought that land up there in Washington and sold half of it, and then ended up selling the other half so I could buy a little half acre in Oregon close to where the school was. Graduated from the school, sold that land that I had purchased to go to their school there, and then I bought some land in Washington, which is where I'm at now. I am currently residing just south of Victoria. Thinking of you, Orion. South of Victoria, Canada. Just a few miles, maybe 150 miles from Victoria, and about 100 miles from Seattle. And so that's the general area of my location. So, I mean, that's basically it. You know, I've had some relationships since, since my partner and I split. And I also went to college again, and this time I went to a technical college, a 2-year community college was what we call it in the States. And it was a 2-year technical degree. After getting the degree, I was allowed to, because of the degree, I was allowed by the state to sit for a test to receive a license, which I did get, in producing or disinfecting water. I specifically got a water producing license through the Oregon Health Authority, which is under the auspices of the National Health Authority. And so we made drinking water for a city called Wilsonville in Oregon. And I worked for a company out of Paris named Veolia. It's a 150 plus year company that they've been doing water and wastewater and garbage for a long time. And they're fantastic. They're the best in the game. You know, I mean, I really studied for 2 years about this kind of stuff, and they are one of the best. I was so lucky to work for them. A dream come true. To say that I didn't have troubles with autism and working in a professional setting like that would be untrue. I immediately had problems, immediately. And, you know, it ended up becoming this big deal. And that's a whole nother video. But I just basically wanted to make this to let everybody know who I am, where I'm coming from, and I'm not a dirty boy. But I love you guys, and I'm going to come back with some more. I've got some stories and other thoughts. I hope this is okay with y'all. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.